Hey everybody, what's up? It is Darren Perky here for the PPL podcast. Today's episode, we're answering one of the questions from inside of the Paper Lead Marketers group on Facebook, and we're going to be diving into local marketing and how to get partners locally for your PPL business. Let's go!
You're listening to the PPL podcast. Now for your host, Darren Perky.
All right, let's jump into it. So, in the side of the group of Paper Lead Marketers on Facebook, so facebook.com/Paper Lead Marketers, all one word. Go ahead and jump on in there. Actually, there's a slash in between. You get the idea. But basically, Josh Berthold, I think is the way you pronounce his last name. Makes sense. My last name is always mispronounced too, so I'm always cautious when pronouncing people's last names. But basically says, so I may not have thought this through completely, but looking for advice on how to handle it. I went around for some local businesses today and bought them and brought them some treats to show face. Obviously, I am only wanting to generate leads for one business locally. I'm going to be going back today to follow up with them. But my question is to say the first person, let's say the first person wants to work together. So do I let the other people go? Let them go by the wayside, or should I visit them as well? And that's a great question. Actually, I want to point out one of the responses to that question. That's a great thing about a community like the Paper Lead Marketers group is that we answer questions on there, which is it's always a good thing. Obviously, the questions that are posted go through a verification process and make sure there's no spam in there. It makes sure it's just, it's based around PPL, obviously. Ron Eason answered the question. He says, if somebody else wants to work with you, you work with them. Business is not a static condition. Your first partner could be here today, gone tomorrow, no fault of your own. And you can creatively institute a process and serve them both. Just because you sell exclusively to a partner doesn't mean you can have exclusive rights to your services unless they want to pay for that through a higher per lead cost or significantly higher lead budget. Simplest way to manage this scenario is to activate the round robin feature. Yeah, okay, great. His response is perfect. I agree with that a lot. I just want to kind of back that up a little bit and then also go to the beginning of this whole process and kind of think about mentality when it comes to getting partners, right? So there's two lines of thought for local marketing, right? Now, as you guys know, you've heard before a million times from me, niching down is the best way to scale your business because you can keep your processes very simple, it's constantly repeated, all that stuff, right? But let's say you're going to let's just do a sample of dry cleaners, right? You're going to local dry cleaning offices, stores around your city, and you want to work with one of them, right? As Ron was saying, and I totally agree with this, even if you do secure a partner today, doesn't mean that person's going to be around forever, right? That term might be long. Building relationships is what this business is all about, right? It's not just about, yes, I sell leads to people, right? But I have, I'm in the personal injury space. I have really good connections with the partners that I work with. I know their business really well. I know what they're doing. I'm helping them with other things in their business, not just the lead side, right? So we do a lot of things together. We do their cases together. We do trials together, things like that. And as you guys know, I've built other businesses out of that, right? So, if you're going to work with someone, now the question becomes, is local the only way to go? Of course not, right? So you can work nationally with different dry cleaners, whatever niche you're in, all around the country, right? Obviously, that's the smarter way. Now, as a baseline, I would only generate leads for one partner in an area. So we call them partners in PPL, obviously. I would only generate leads for one particular dry cleaner in this case. In a city, right, or in a normal area where they would service, right? Because you're pretty much not going to go across town to a dry cleaner. You're going to go one closest to you for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be some variations there, but for the most part, you're going to be doing someone close to you. You're not going to go out of your way. It could be by your office, obviously, or by your house, but you're pretty much not going to go like 20 miles away for a dry cleaner. Just know that. So even if you have, you could in theory have one or two marketing campaign set up for a city if the city is large enough and people go across town. So as an example, Miami, if I said one dry cleaner in Miami, I mean, obviously there's multiple dry cleaners in Miami that could use your services and not be competing with each other. So there is some of that goes on to this. But if you use a larger service, like let's say a plumber or a roofer or something like that, you got to remember that they're pretty much going to be able to offer that whole service area. So the first criteria my mind goes to is, if I offer leads to two people, is there a conflict of coverage, right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, and this is what Ron was pointing to as well, the round robin feature, which I'll get into. Is there a way to get one campaign to produce multiple partners' leads and still be exclusive? The answer to the question is yes. So how that would work is a couple different ways. The way we do it for like something like SSDs, we have national campaigns set up. They generate leads, and whatever their zip code is, will provide that person a lead. If there's more than one person, what you can do is do what's called a round robin feature. Now, most call tracking services have this. Basically, what happens is it's up to 3, I think, but 2 numbers get called at the same time, and whoever answers that phone first gets that lead. The issue with that is if a partner is not answering the phone in a timely manner, or there's normal delays in the calling process for that particular partner because their service is a little different than others. There is some of that. Now, if a partner is not answering the phone calls in the first place, probably not a good partner, right? That's the whole idea. The other way, and what we kind of do for SSD, is we actually answer the phones, take the intakes, take the zip code, and then we just basically, we call it bingoing it. So basically, in order. So it's not really big. We call it bingo, but it's not really bingo now I think about it. Basically what we do is the first company gets the call, the second company gets the second call, third company gets the third call, and then we rotate back to the first company for the fourth call. That's not how it works, but that's the precipice of it, right? So basically, we have 17 total partners that can take SSD stuff. Well, no, I guess that's true. It's personal injury. I think we have 5 that we take SSD from us. So those 5 partners can take it because most partners will work in multiple states. That's usually how it works, just so you know. But anyway, so there's a couple ways there, right? So the first part of this is, if you're going to do local, there's 2 battles. Obviously, if you're niching down, there's the question of coverage areas. What makes sense as far as coverage areas? Can you carve out coverage areas and say, okay, all these leads coming from this area are yours? And then what you would do there is have one, generic site with different phone numbers based on the city that they work in, or you could do some stuff with like zip code and stuff like that. Or someone calls in, they put in their zip code, and then it finds the nearest one to them based on a call tree. There's things you can do, but that's complicated, obviously. But for simplicity, for the most part, you want to be working with one person in there. But it's always good to keep building relationships. Let's say you spent $50 a month. If I had a partner in an area, then just to be clear, I do not currently do this because I'm only in personal injury. If I was in a niche where I constantly had rotating partners, which happens in a lot of these niches, it's normal, right? Seasonality, whatever. I would have a small budget, maybe $50 a month, where I'm sending small things to people that I've had good connections with, not just cold prospects, right? People who I've actually talked to who are not currently a partner of mine, to keep them in the loop, send them blog post ideas. One of the things you'll do when you do WOW service, for those of you who are in the program know what that is, basically week over week, what are you doing to keep your partners happy and remembering you and together with you? And one of the things that we do is we try to get something personal. So like a good example is one of the lawyers that we have, his daughter goes to Yale. So I'm not a Yale alum, but I know friends who go to Yale. So they basically have this really cool group there called the Spizwinks, which is it's like an all-male a cappella group. And she's into music. I knew that. So I got her like a private kind of showing because I call in a favor and got some things going. So there's that, right? There's that kind of stuff, which costs you, it costs you a favor per se, but it's really costs you nothing as far as dollar amounts go. And then there's the occasional, like one of the guys in our PPL Profits program, he basically had he is into cats and he has this thing, and there was a picture, it was called his name, something cat farm, something like that, and it was just funny because it was like his name, it's his last name and then the cat thing, and so I took a picture of it and I sent it to him. Again, funny, but nothing costs you money, right? Now, there's obvious things we do, like where we give out something, we'll give like a gift card, or not a gift card like for Amazon, but something like, hey, every now and then I'll send a gift card to someone who's currently under our partnership, obviously. I'll send them random stuff like a book that I saw that I think they'd like, or something like that, right? There's always things you can do. So just to be clear, there's things. And if it was a prospect, I would send out maybe a letter once a month, a postcard that you could have pre-made. Like you could have small runs for $100 for I think it's custom prints is pretty inexpensive for stuff like that. Or no, sorry, not custom prints, overnight prints. Those guys are really good over there, really inexpensive, and they white label stuff for you too. If you ever need direct marketing stuff, they're great for that. And then the idea, though, is that you have basically a reminder that you're still there, right? Like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we saw happening this month in dry cleaning. Here's some chemical stuff that we saw, some regulations for chemicals. And, again, if you're doing a niche, you should be into your niche, right? You should be reading magazines and news articles and journals about your industry. You should be learning the complications they have. Like, my assumption is that the chemicals used in dry cleaning is a common problem for local areas. I assume that's the case. So I would learn about the local laws and how that works, and how to save money, or maybe get a group buy. Like, I would even help people, like, in the case of that, like, so chemicals wise, right? I'm not sure how this will work regulation wise, but if I had a bunch of guys in the area who were trying to get bulk stuff, maybe we could buy 100 gallons of something versus 10 gallons. I'm not sure that's a good example, but the point is, I would try to find something to serve the community that I'm working in, even if you're not able to work with all of them, right? It's still a good thing. So, like, I go to chamber meetings all the time. Now, nobody at that chamber meeting can work with me ever, but I'm in the community. That's the whole point. I want to be there in the community, and there's not a time, and there's nothing better when you go to these chamber meetings and someone says, well, what do you do? Oh, I help personal injury attorneys grow their business. I do lead gen and all stuff like that for them as well. They're going to think of you as the attorney marketer, right? Not the guy who does lead gen for people. Because if you say, oh, I do marketing, internet marketing, everything she do web design, everything she build websites. You get all the website deals, which suck, right? Those are the worst in the world. Though they can be profitable, I hate doing web design. Not that you can't make good money, but people's perception of design versus what actually works for as far as CRO is not ever the same. So I hate doing them, but obviously we quit them out a lot. We just charge a lot for them, so when we do get them, we make money. So that's the whole idea. But what happens, like, I tell you, you guys have probably heard this story before, but when I first got into my first client was because of, I was at a charity event, and so I was doing something for the junior league down in Boca Raton, and I was speaking at a junior league event, and at the time I was a marketer. I wasn't a personal injury, and I sure hell wasn't PPL. I was a marketer, and basically, a lady came up to me and said, "Listen, I have a theater. I want to promote the theater. We have showings all the time. I want to make sure that I get people to the showings because it's how we make money." And a nice old lady, I thought, this is gonna be amazing, man. A theater, like, how hard could it be to do some local SEO stuff? At the time, Google Plus was, not around, so Google Maps was kind of there, but, like, really it was just, like, easy to get people to traffic, right? So at the time it was like Yahoo ads and being at, I think it was mostly Yahoo back then. But anyway, so I was like, this is gonna be amazing. I can help you get ranked for stuff, like show different movie times, all different things. So she gives me this address, and it's like in the middle of like downtown. I'm like, why? I don't remember a theater being there, so it was weird. So I go to this place, and it's a puppet theater for like retired puppeteers, and she gets like 300 people a showing, but she makes like $100 because she charges the schools these. It's crazy. It was horrible. It was like her budget for the quarter was like $300. I think it was ridiculous. Basically, it was a waste of my time. But I gave her a donation. I gave her because she's a nonprofit. Questions I didn't know what to ask. Obviously, when I first met her. So anyway, I gave her a donation, and when I was there, this guy was with his son, and basically ended up being an attorney, and he wanted to know what I did to give a donation like that. I gave a pretty decent sized donation, and decided to do marketing and stuff like that. So he wanted to talk to me, and that being my first client, and obviously the rest of it is history. But the idea though is that working in the local community can be a great place to start. You just got to figure out what your niche is and know what the questions to ask and know what to do, and that's not always easy, right? It's not always easy to do that at the beginning. That's why I going door to door and giving out stuff is a fine way to do it, right? Just be in your niche, right? And this is where, if you're not sure which niche you like or what you want to get into, you can do that to multiple things, but have your marketing material set up for that. So pick dry cleaner for one, pick a restaurant for another one, whatever it is you want to do, and basically go around and give each of those people, their marketing material. Your business card has what you do for that industry. So it could be a little costly up front. But the reason I'm saying it's okay to do that is because you're going to find out very well. Now, if you had told me 15 years ago that I was going to work amazingly with attorneys, I'd be like, there's no way. I hate attorneys. There's no way I'm going to work well with attorneys. But I get along so with attorneys. We understand each other. We're both, I'm not really an alpha per se, but, maybe I am, I don't know. But we get along very, very well. Attorneys and I just, when we get on the phone together, we just mesh. I don't know what it is, but we just mesh. So, and I enjoy the law. I'm really into the law, so that's probably a reason too. But I wasn't before. I got to attorneys, right? I just, these are guys who are successful. I want to be successful, and that's how it always works for me. Anyway, so you're gonna have to find out who you work well with. Just like when you're doing marketing for someone, if, like, for instance, one of the clients I have is in South Florida, and he's an old Jewish guy. He's not old. I say he's not old at all, but he's an older Jewish guy, and he works really well with like 45 and up women. If you're 45 and up and you've been injured, and you're a female, and you see his ad, you're gonna call him. I don't know what it is about him. First of all, he's a great guy, obviously, but he's a really good dude. He's really family orientated. He's actually the one that has the kid up in at Yale, and it's just an interesting thing that's kind of like he works really well. Well, his advertising and his lead gen that I do for him is different than I would for an attorney who will take all the cases they can get and just settle everything. So I don't have any of those clients. That most people I work with are my personality, where it's like do the right thing. People who don't necessarily want to sue but have to sue, that sort of thing. And I'm not calling these guys out. Don't get me wrong. I'm just going to say their name. Steiniger, Isco, and Green, which is also down here, is very much settlement based. So they're like, take everything you can get in, and then just settle everything, get paid out really quick, and don't worry about the timeline. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's a different marketing campaign than what I would do for Lebovic. If I put up the ads now, the reason for that is because who their team works well with as well naturally adapts to that. So when I do coaching or really consulting for law firms and practice management, I will discuss this with them and talk about, like, let me see your client base. Who do you work well with? Naturally, you're going to have a segment of the market that you do well with, right? There are certain people who do really well with DUI. I don't know, whatever it is. Whatever it is they have their niche. Maybe the local dry cleaning company is really good with business owners who can come and they deliver right to their office, where some people won't do that. So whatever your niche is, makes your marketing easier because you're talking to people who are actually connecting with the business. In the law firm space, if someone who's looking for a settlement just to get paid out on a stupid accident, Lebovic won't even take them as a case. This guy won't even take them as a case. He doesn't want to deal with it, right? He's just not into the whole, like, okay, listen, if it's a legit case, let's take it. If it's not a legit case, why are we wasting our time? We're not good. That's who we are as a person. So, and then trying to find the faulty part. They just did a case with an 84-year-old woman who these police officers were on a police chase in the middle of the city on a car that was suspected to be stolen, and they basically did a high-speed chase through the city, and the perpetrator ran a red light and hit an 84-year-old woman in her car and like totaled the car, and she got really messed up, had a bunch of surgeries, and the city's at fault there. The city broke their own guidelines of where, like, they're not supposed to do a high-speed chase unless the actual value or the versus like damage reward. There's a bunch of things they have criteria for a high-speed chase, and so everything that they have in their criteria was not met to do this high-speed chase in the city during busy school hours, and the guy almost hit somebody on a curb. There's a lot of things that go on to it. Anyway, the point of this is that whoever you work well with is who it's going to be. And so maybe doing the going around local business just to see who you work well with can be beneficial, but it can be costly too. So just know that as a starting point. But yeah, the idea here is that when you're doing this local thing, right, having backups and serving your community and your market is always going to help you. Now, there's attorneys that I talk to, I wouldn't say regularly. I say maybe once or twice a quarter, maybe. That I'll never work with. They're too small for me, right? I'm at the point now where unless you're doing like $25 million a year or more, it's not really worth my time to help an attorney just because it's effort, right? There's no learning curve. There's a lot of things involved with that. You got to have like 10 attorneys who can take the leads, that sort of thing. But there's guys who have 2 or 3 partners that I'll talk to still, because I know one day they might be in my will of influence, right? They might be able to work with me one day because they're still growing. I'm still helping them grow their business. Now, am I getting paid for that? No, right? But the goal is I'm also learning what their struggles are. They're talking to me about them. I'm doing this and this. What do you think? What do you think? Like I've even said before that a lot of the guys have said, listen, can I pay you like a couple $1,000 a month to be an advisor? Now I do that with some of the. I'm on a special board and advisor for a company called Rocker down in Miami, but they pay me a salary. I get a salary from there as a I don't know. I guess you could call it a retainer, I guess. But the idea, though, is that you help the people in your community because your community will be able to pay you eventually. And that's not the reason you're doing it, obviously, but that's part of it, right? It's like you're learning different levels. So you might want to have, work with dry cleaners who only have delivery service because that's who you work well with, and it's easier for you to build those campaigns for their business customers. That might be what you do. Who knows, right? So the guys who don't have delivery yet, help them figure out a way to get delivery and then use your services, right? Now, that might not necessarily be an end game. They might not never need that, but you're understanding what a business owner who is not offering delivery is going through, so you can still learn from them. So it's still mutually beneficial, right? So there's ways, but yeah, for the most part, yes, you want to, even if you don't, if the first person wants to work with you and you secure a partner and they pay you and all that stuff, right, whatever, there's no reason you shouldn't go to the other ones as well. And then if you do get another partner, see if there's any kind of coverage area you can kind of carve out for them, if that's the first case. 2, you can do the round robin thing, which I don't do that a lot, especially for personal injury, I don't do that at all, but for like stuff like SSD, which I can't say this word very well, but I'm going to try it. Social Security, I can't speak. You get SSD, look it up. So basically that, and then the other way to have is have a call center, take those calls. But first, I don't know what the local niche was in this scenario. I'm just using dry cleaners as an example. But see if there's a place you can carve out things, do a round robin, or keep them in there. Either way, any of those scenarios, keep everybody in the loop, right? Give them stuff still, and I mean like content, right? Not necessarily things, but content. Connect with them. And you're not doing that for people who you haven't connected with. Like if you had a conversation with somebody like, oh, screw yourself, don't do that for that person. Who cares? You don't want that guy in the first place, or that person. But if they do something where it's like you guys have a good meaningful conversation, but it's just not a good fit because it's a conflict right now. Okay, fine. Still work together. Still work in a capacity of, helping them out, bounce questions off you, marketing, stuff like that. It's fine. It costs you 23 minutes a month or less of your time to build a good, strong relationship. And if they expand to a new location, guess what? Now you have an option. So there's things you can do. I just think, I don't think it's ever wrong to close partners. You know what I mean? Just do that. I think, just be honest with them, tell them what's going on, and figure it out. That's very simple other than that. So, yeah, that's it. So basically, guys, thanks so much for listening to the PPL podcast today. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast here on YouTube, on SoundCloud, or on, I don't know where else this would be at right now. I know we're not on iTunes yet, people. I know, I'm sorry. It's not a priority for me. I just need to pay someone to do it for me. But, I don't have any idea of monetizing this yet, so I don't know, I enjoy doing it. I like talking about business, obviously, all the time, so, whatever. But listen, guys, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys real soon, as always, for PPL Podcast. This is Darren Perkey. See you later!